berserk with Minnesota.
Hey, you're on the air, Ron. Come on.
I'm on the air.
If you're betting NFL this year, you're going to want to see this show, and you're going to actually want to see our summer series with the real experts to learn a lot of different information. This show is going to be the NFC Divisional Revisit. We did a preview earlier, and what we're going to do is our exact process that we do each and every week, where we have no preparation, but it doesn't mean we don't know what we're talking about. But we're just going to bounce. We're going to go through each division quickly and each team and see where we've changed from what we thought originally and what we're looking ahead. Ron, why don't you start it off, my friend?
Okay, well, let's start off at the supposed top with Dallas. My position here originally was that, Dallas was losing a few people here and there, but there was still enough of a gap between Dallas and the other three teams in this NFC East that they would maintain control of the division. But I am not so sure anymore. Dallas is one of two teams in the NFC that will have three new offensive line starters. And not just any starters, but some really good ones are gone due to a variety of different things, including injury just recently. So they're going to have a very raw rookie left tackle right now that last year played his ball at Tulsa. And there's going to be growing pains. Luckily, Dak Prescott is an experienced quarterback. But Chris, we're also talking about they lost their leading sacker. They lost one of their two tight ends. So the team isn't quite as good. The wide receivers, they have Gallup, who's not ready to start the season. What do you think about Dallas, and do you agree the gap has really closed?
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Let's not forget the extreme luck that they had with turnovers, if I'm not mistaken, last year. And we're not going to see a replication of that this year for sure. You know what? I'm kind of just staying away from them. I'm on a wait and see with them because they do have the potential to really implode. I mean, that could be the first head coach firing, quite frankly, this season.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's still there, but you know what? I'm on wait and see with Dallas, but you're definitely right that the difference between they shouldn't even be favored to win the division at this point. I think we have to kind of look Philadelphia's way. Not that I would bet it, but I think are we done with the Cowboys?
We're done with the Cowboys, and since you transitioned to Philly, I was neutral on Philly, still wanting to see more about Jalen Hurts. There's been a lot of bandwagon movement for Philly. People that I respect and people, I just hear all along that Philly should be the favorite. Philly should be the favorite, and I didn't buy into that, but I'm slowly buying into that because their roster continues to improve. They went ahead and got Bradbury from the New York Giants after we spoke a few months ago and after the draft, and they just traded for Chauncey. I can't remember his last name, but I think they traded Gardner Johnson, I believe it is. And so they've really solidified the cornerback position. And if you remember, Philly was dreadful on the last line of defense. They gave up a lot of splash plays and yards. They still have safety play that bothers me, but all the moves they made at wide receiver, the offensive line a little bit, although Dillard just went down yesterday to an injury, so they're going to lose one of their own offensive line starters. They have a good tight end. They have variety at running back. They're trying to make it so that the toys that Hurts has to play with are going to work out. So I'm going to call it 50-50 between Dallas and Philly. I'm not yet ready to be on the bandwagon, but I could see that Philly has improved since we last talked and Dallas has not.
Yeah, you basically took the wind out of my sails. As you mentioned, they're filling holes that are needed. Yeah. And they actually are building themselves out for the playoffs more than the regular season, from what I understand in my readings. which is, kind of interesting. But, they have a lot of pressure on them. And that's a lot of pressure on a young quarterback because, of what you said, the word on the street is they're the team to beat and there's high expectations. And when that happens, things can go south quickly sometimes with that kind of pressure.
Philly and the New York Giants, who we could talk about next. Those two teams have multiple draft choices. They've had multiple draft choices. If Hurts doesn't work, Philly is no stranger to making deals on draft day. They're more than willing to make deals, and they'll get one of the top quarterbacks next year, and they've surrounded whoever it's going to be with a lot of talent. So sometimes we're talking, and we should be talking about this year, but Philly also has an eye on next year.
Yeah.
So I haven't done anything with Philly and Dallas.
Well, as you mentioned, the quarterback draft next year is deep. So we're going to see teams probably expedite their process in making sure they know exactly what their quarterback status is. And if there's a need to get off, the next year's draft is a great opportunity for people to reload a quarterback. So that's something to look for with some teams is, how much are they going to play these quarterbacks that may or may not be good, once the season gets rolling and starts nearing the end. So you touched on the New York Giants. I'll start there where, obviously the Galladay money is just pissed away at this point. Everybody's talking about that. And we talked about that last year. Thank goodness the Lions didn't re-sign him because that would have been a real waste. There are people that are very, very high on the Giants. They think that their offense is going to be much improved. And they have a pretty darn good defense. So, this is do or die for Jones, obviously. And it's going to be interesting to see if this team can ever have any health and get to play with each other, frankly. So I'm on a holding pattern with every team in this division, and I'm in a holding pattern with the Giants. What about you?
That's where I was a few months ago, and I have taken a stab at the under 7.5 with a little juice with the Giants. They have to prove to me that they could just automatically transition and start a season better than 0-4 or 2-6, which is what's been happening. Reports are positive out of preseason that Danny Dimes, whatever you want to call him, Daniel Jones, is showing positive steps. But then I read something just before we went on air that says all that's fine from within the organization, but he has to prove it in the regular season. So they put some additional pressure with those words just an hour ago from our taping. I think the Giants are really, really vulnerable in the secondary. And in a passing league, that's a problem for me. I think their pass rush could be a little bit better than it was last year. And it better be because it was somewhere around 30th last year. So they have some work to do. They still have an incomplete offensive line. The X factor for me is Barkley. He's not just a running back, but when he's fully healthy, he's expected to not only carry the ball, but also make people miss when the ball was thrown to him. If he can get back to his rookie or second year level, maybe we'll have something with the offense. Maybe it can be diversified a little bit. But I went ahead and did a little bit on the New York Giants since we last talked, mainly because they're not ready yet.
Yeah, I heard a great podcast, about the Giants, and yeah, it was nice, but I'm just not buying it. This division has 3 teams on the, that are either going to be the same or better. Let's transition here to the Washington. Is there a team in the NFL that has been ignored and not discussed, more than Washington? I mean, you never hear anybody mention Washington. They're completely forgotten. Have you heard anybody talk about them?
That's a good point. I have not. They're completely off the radar. The NFL gets attention 24/7, and it's been crazy. We're finally ready for the season. And you're right, nothing on Washington.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder. I don't know what it is, but I was low on Washington, and I don't remember the details of what kind of turned me a little bit. But it seems like they've done a few this and that type of things. They've got the new quarterback there. Yeah, does he have something to prove, or is he just on his way out of the league? I just don't see them folding up shop. I feel like this is a team that, let's not forget, 2 years ago, everybody was raving about that defense. And I warned last year, hey, you're not going to see that again. Now they're going to play real teams. And I predicted that they would start off absolutely miserably, and they did start off miserably, and their season, went down the drain. Now we've got the opposite situation where this whole division has the easiest schedule.
Right.
But Washington has a much easier schedule. That defense might just show up again this year a little bit more. I think their offense has improved just a little bit, potentially. It's in better shape than it was last year. So I'm not going to ignore Washington in the least. What are your thoughts?
On the surface, the schedule looks okay, but then I did a deeper dive. So we've got 13 weeks before they have their bye week. Yeah. And in weeks 10, 11, 12, 13, 3 of those games are on the road. There's 1 or 2 short weeks included. Just a note to myself and for anybody who wants to take notes is that when you get to those situations and there's fatigue and fewer days, that's a play against no matter who the opponent is, because it's just tough to keep yourself at an even keel all the way through. I find the schedule a little bit tricky and a little bit challenging. I think there's a lot of better points about the team than there were at the end of last year. Even Wentz is a little bit of an upgrade. They had the first place schedule last year, so you're right. They played real opponents last year and suffered the consequences. I think the defensive line will rebound a little. I'm still worried about the secondary. I think more than anything, I'm a little bit bearish on them just because of the peaks and valleys of the schedule. I don't think Wentz and company have the mental fortitude to get through 13 weeks before their first full bye, but I think they'll be competitive.
Well, they could come out of the gate okay. So I kind of agree with you that things could fall apart by the end of the season. And again, I'm just keeping an open mind. My ears are kind of perked up on them a little bit. There's just something odd about how they're being dismissed and ignored. And, sometimes you just see teams come out on fire that are just coming out of nowhere. But that division, I call it the Yahtzee division because you don't know what the hell is going to happen. And we know that there's been a new division winner in that division since 2003, each and every year. So will that continue? The last note I want to make is my metrics were, actually kind of generous towards the Giants overall last year. They seem to play better than their record. So, I just don't know what to make of it. But moving on to the NFC North, the Bears.
The Bears. Okay. Well, I haven't changed my opinion on the Bears. And of course, all the numbers are gone. So we don't have to talk about the season wins and stuff. What I think we'll see, it's been reinforced by further study as I go through. I'm finalizing my entire NFL preview right now. Is that you're going to see quarterback Fields have some spectacular games like he did in one of the preseasons. And then when he goes up against a tougher defense that disguises their blitzes and that kind of thing, he's going to hit the wall. He's going to be running. He's going to be one-read quarterback. The problem I have is that unlike other quarterbacks in their first or second year, his supporting cast is dreadfully thin. They haven't drafted well. They haven't drafted talent-wise as well. The defensive coaching staff that they had last year is gone. Talk me off Chicago. I have them at 4th place. I had them at 4th place in April and May. It's September 2nd. I still have them in 4th.
Just the key losses that they had last year are just, that's just brutal. You really took the 2 best components away and gave them to the Rams in San Diego, the Chargers. So
yeah,
I feel bad for Fields in his situation. How is he supposed to succeed? I just don't see a pathway, and I agree 100%. You're going to see, flashes of brilliance, and you're going to see complete ineptitude at times. And I don't have anything positive to say about the Bears, other than I'm positive they won't be good.
One thing I will say, I know you and I will do this, but other people should do this as well. If Fields has a spectacular performance, don't necessarily go on the bandwagon of that. Stay even keel. Don't be afraid to bet against them the next week, depending on who the opponent is and what the metrics say, as far as defensive pressure and so on and so forth.
I agree. 100%.
Don't overreact.
I don't know why I never liked this team, but maybe it's because I'm a Lions fan, but the Green Bay Packers have overachieved significantly the last 2 years, according to Pythag. They flamed out in the playoffs and been exposed. Rodgers, in my opinion, is sort of like the gas guzzler Rolls Royce that, is piggish about the money. It's cost him severely with a supporting cast. Adams couldn't wait to get out of Dodge. He's notorious for not trusting new receivers, and that's all he has, for the most part. So it's going to be interesting. He's kept this lack of interception streak going for a couple of years now, and I believe that that's cost the team, because what that says is that he's not taking risks. He's worried about his interception. So I'm a little worried about the me of Rodgers. I'm worried, the defense is going to be much better this year, though. But I don't think they're going to be as offensively efficient as they have been. I don't know what to make of them. I do think that they could fade considerably. They probably shouldn't, but we're going to, that's going to depend on what the Vikings do, frankly. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go into the season, I think, the same way I went into the season with Philadelphia last year, and that I have no idea what Green Bay is going to do. I'm not going to take them over. I'm not going to take them under. I'm not looking to ride them. I'm not looking not to ride them. I'm going to sit in with the Rodgers and his psychologist and see what he's thinking each week. Is he in grunge mode? Is he in pissed off mode? Is he in introspective mode? Is he in drug mode? It just depends on his attitude and what gets him turned on and off. What else can I tell you about the team? That I think he'll be careful again, like you said, with his interceptions. I think he's out to prove something that he can win without Adams. The defense is going to be pretty good. Depending on how we feel about Minnesota, I agree. If Minnesota is not a contender, then Green Bay, even though it's a little bit of a tricky schedule, Green Bay is still kind of on path to have the number 1 seed. But let me add one more thing, Chris, because we talked about this with the Chargers just in the AFC show. Green Bay's special team play was just crazy bad. Did it improve in the preseason? No, it got worse. So here we go again. 3 games is not the answer, but aren't you looking for something positive from such a pathetic showing the last couple of years from Green Bay? And I didn't see it. If special teams, Crosby, by the way, I don't think he kicked in preseason. He came off an injury, but he says he's good to go. He's been streaky. What if he starts out 0 for 3 or misses a game-winning kick? These kickers, it gets in their heads. I would worry about close game status if Crosby does not get off to a good start. And that's one of the notes I'll be making.
Yeah, I'm distracted because I just pulled up the week 1 lines, and there's something strange about the Green Bay Minnesota line. Don't you agree? Or you think that's where it belongs?
It's probably, I don't know, because Minnesota's been a tough team for me in terms of where I want to place them when we talk about them, or we could even start to talk about them. A short dog is what they are, right? About 2 points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is a Green Bay and Minnesota, they faced off so many times. It's almost advantage Rodgers because he knows everything about that team, even if they're newly coached. the personnel hasn't changed that much over last year to this year defensively. But I pivoted on Minnesota. I was very negative on them. Then I was starting to be neutral. Now I'm worried about that I should be positive on them. I need to do my week-to-week analysis. Right now, I'm treating Minnesota as if I've never even had any opinion on them. It looks like all their uncommon opponents. I want to discuss the 3 teams that the other guys don't play. I'm trying to look where it is. Their uncommon opponents: Arizona, Indianapolis, and New Orleans.
Who gets those 3? Minnesota does?
Minnesota. And all 3 of them look like, I think their whole schedule looks like a toss-up to me. They could win or lose Arizona. They can win or lose Indianapolis. They could win or lose New Orleans. That's what I'm scared at, that if their whole schedule is a toss-up, maybe they go 8.5 and 8.5.
And let's not forget, didn't Minnesota have 7 or 8 one-score losses last year? They didn't even win one of them or something like that?
That I don't remember. I know it's true with Nebraska in the college football, but
there'll be no college football discussion here, Ron.
Oh, no college football.
So,
at least not until.
Well, since you segued into the Vikings, we'll skip the Lions for now. But I'm kind of upset I didn't get in early on the over. That offense could be a monster if they stay healthy. Why is there anything to stop them from being the number 1 offense in the NFL if they're healthy?
If they're healthy, because Cook has a tendency not to last 17 games.
Right.
Occasionally, they lose an offensive lineman. Prior to last week, they only went 2 deep at wide receiver. That worried me. They haven't paid attention in the draft to getting really good wide receivers. But now, through trades and somebody stepping up, they may go 4 deep at wide receiver, which is a really perk. They're a little bit down on offensive line, but you mentioned health. Irv Smith, if he's healthy, that'll work. So I hadn't thought of it in that terms as we're brainstorming now, that Minnesota could have a top 3 or 4 offense. But they're going to open it up without Zimmer there. So maybe they take advantage of Kirk Cousins and his 70% accuracy rate over the last 3 years. Maybe you're onto something there, where if their defense can rush the passer enough to take pressure off their secondary, that we're going to see some high-scoring games here.
Yeah, I don't think that they have a. Do they even have a top 15 defense is a goal?
They have the capability of that because they have guys who have been known throughout their career to rush the passer effectively, which can really have an impact on your overall defensive performance if you don't have time to throw. I think their ceiling would be like top 11, 12, but their floor is still 20.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. They were a 15 to 20 defense, but frankly, if I have to make one kind of prediction, I think the Vikings are going to be in the top 1 or 2 offenses, unless they hit disaster. And when you've got an offense that can click, good things can happen to you. Because some of these other powerhouse teams, I think they may fall back a little bit. We discussed that at the AFC. I mean, they're probably competing with Buffalo for the best offense. Who else? Who else? Aren't those 2 teams like right at the top?
Yeah, I mean, normally you put Dallas there. They could fall back just a little bit, but and Kansas City. I know they lost Tyreek Hill, but you're still going to put them in that area.
And maybe San Diego. I'll bet when you're talking Buffalo, San Diego. Chargers, and Minnesota seem to be like the top 3, and then you get a drop down as far as my expectations are this season.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. We need to come to your team, though. Let's not forget the Lions, right? Are they going to cause a mess?
In a nutshell, when do you ever see a team bond like they have bond?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, it's happened before, but everybody's buying into what's going on, and everybody likes what they see on Hard Knocks. And when you've got the coaches doing drills with the players and the enthusiasm is there, they actually had players that could have made more money elsewhere come back to the Lions. I mean, amazing, just amazing. And if I hear another person say that Goff is a horrible quarterback and they basically have, nothing going, you know what? I honestly believe he's going to have a good year. I really do. He came to camp 100% committed. He had the playbook memorized day one. Players commented that it was inspirational, that he has so much enthusiasm. He's got no expectations on him. He had trouble, living in La La Land when there was high expectations and pressure. Obviously the concern is that when he wins, there's usually somebody in his ear telling him what to do. And we don't know what we have in Campbell. There's going to be mistakes throughout the season with what he's running. Not only do I want to hear your thoughts on the Lions, I think that they have one of the highest possibilities of a ceiling versus a floor in the league. And there's just going to be extreme variance because a lot of those stats that they had from last year were in garbage time. And that's another concern. But they've got a top 3 offensive line in the NFL now. They've got receivers. In fact, they've got the one of the best receivers in the league with Brown, who didn't even win the longest 93 attempts without a drop pass. And those are the type of people that you need. You've got people saying, I want to be in the 1,000 club. They've got running backs, tight end. The offense is there for Goff. And the defense is going to be a problem still. So they've got the edge rushers, but the linebackers suck and the cornerbacks can't stay healthy and they're small. I want to know, I am sick and tired of hearing this Lombardi repeat over and over and over again how he likes the Lions, but week 1, they face Philadelphia. And that's a strange line to me also. He says, well, the Eagles play a very odd running scheme. And there are teams that just cannot stop it. And then there are teams that can stop it. What are your thoughts on that, on the Lions, and what are your thoughts on that week 1 matchup?
Okay, let's take the week 1 first. I think he's on to something with how Hurts and the offense is designed for Hurts, which took place second half of last year for Philly. There are teams, Green Bay one of them, but there are a few teams in the league that have not adjusted to running quarterbacks. And we'll have to pay attention to whether or not the Lions are one of those. I'd have to go back and see how they've done. But
we beat that crap out of Kyler Murray last year.
Yeah, Kyler Murray was he was holding back an injury. He stopped running.
I know.
So you have to go with that. But there are some teams that have not adjusted, and they're splits when they face a running quarterback versus a non-running quarterback. It's one of the hidden things that I'm trying to explore. It's one thing I haven't done for 2021 completely, but it's something I want to get more into as far as that goes. As far as the Lions go, I need to see things before I fully embrace them. I expect them to win 7, 8, 9 games this year. But maybe I'm wrong, because we talk about the edge rushers they have and they've gone ahead and drafted, yet I saw no indication that they could rush the passer last year. And I see no indication in August that they've changed their scheme. I know Swift, their running back, can do more than just run the ball. In fact, he's dangerous in space, but I don't see him on the field enough to even matter, that way. So
he wants to be a 1,000 guy this year.
Yeah, well, what's that? 1,000 minutes in practice and 1,000 minutes, in the medical tent. No, I'm sorry, but I need to see more out of some of their pass rushers. I need to see more out of their running back. Then I can start to handicap Goff, who I would never say is a bad quarterback. I will say this: he is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, and I know that for a fact. He has complete command of the playbook. The problem is he doesn't have, in my opinion, enough natural ability like a top 10 quarterback to whiz the ball in through tight windows and all those other things. He needs space. There's some other things he needs. He's not going to throw a pass that gets a wide receiver open like some of these guys do. But he's really smart, but he needs everything to click for him. And that includes Swift, maybe the most important person in my analysis for the Lions.
Well, I know that after the Lions had their break, he was putting up some very nice stats and performing very well after the break until he got injured. So, that's one of the reasons why I'm optimistic on him. I'm a Lions fan, so I'm jaded. I just hope that they kind of reach the 7-8 win type of plateau and avoid any unreasonable variance to the positive or the negative, because you just want to see a team kind of gradually build up, in my opinion. And this is a perfect example of a team that if they do, better than 8 wins, I'm not sure that that's good for them for next year. I want to see them climb up the ladder a bit.
Dick Vermeil, he just got inducted in the Hall of Fame. For old timers there, his Philly teams, they needed to learn how to win before they actually could win.
Right.
That's the situation Detroit is in now. They haven't learned how to win. When they learn how to win, they could take the next step.
Exactly. That's a better way of actually putting it. The NFC South might be the most annoying division to me to discuss. I'll start with Carolina because I was very down on them. And, in previous videos and conversations, you've pointed out reasons to not be down on them. And they just aggravate me because they underperformed their metrics last season. They were one of the teams that hurt me. We know how dangerous McCaffrey is. Is he ever going to stay healthy? And the thing that scares me out of the gate is they're fully healthy. They've added a lot of components. And I kind of had my eyes on Cleveland for week 1. And now I'm kind of worried about these Panthers. They're too healthy and they're good. They're good. They've got a solid team when they're healthy. And that's my view on it is, it's just bittersweet. I'm going to wait for the metrics to kick in and see what they're really doing.
Yeah, it's a toss-up game, I think, week 1. And as you know, and if people followed us and listened to those divisional previews, I started to get bullish on Carolina. And I got ahead of the curve before they got their quarterback, which turned out nice since Sam Darnold's down with injury for a few weeks. So I think 2 things could happen, and they're completely opposite of each other. McCaffrey could stay healthy, and you realize that this defense is so well coached, finished 2nd and 4th in a couple of categories, and yet nobody knows most of the names on their defense, that all they have to do is not turn the ball over and let McCaffrey do his thing, and they should be able to win 8-9 games, sail above that original 5.5 number. The other scenario is they stumble early. Baker Mayfield isn't the real deal. He can't throw deep or whatever, and the coach is fired after week 5 or something like that. So 2 completely different scenarios, and I took the scenario that Carolina has been building for this year number 3. Matt Rule is a program builder. He's not a quick fixer. The question is, will he be given enough time to fix this with basically top 15 at best quarterback play, probably just top 20 quarterback play. But I haven't changed my opinion on Carolina.
It's also going to be a matter if Rule is smart enough after 2 seasons of McCaffrey injuries to use him a little differently and try to, protect him a little bit more, because I think they kind of leaned on him a little hard when he was in the lineup previously. And I think it's important for them to find a way to win with him on the field and not depending on him, every play or every few plays.
Yeah, good point. And I wish they had a better tight end, but that's an area that would have helped, but it's not there.
No, Atlanta is another goofy team where people are changing their minds. It was all but assured that they were going to be the worst team in the league. And And now sharps are kind of changing their mind, and they're buying back that total that went way down. I'm not even sure how low it got. I think it got down to 4 in some places. But a lot of people are realizing with the mobility of the quarterback and Mariota, he's got some weapons to throw the ball to. Their defense completely underperformed last year. It was a joke. We talked about it last year that you get that defensive-minded coach. He should come in and improve this and that. And I think it was even worse than he arrived. So Atlanta is one of those teams I'm not I have no opinion of. I think that they could start off. I think all bad teams can start off surprisingly well. But by the season's end, I would anticipate the Falcons flame out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I went pretty much all in on the Atlanta unders. I'm not going to change my opinion on that, but like Houston, when we discussed that in the AFC, this team has made me mad. And they've made me mad because Mariota looked like he belonged in this offense in August. I look for things like that. Like I said on the last show, and I'll say it again, there are things that you can pick up in the preseason that are meaningful. And unfortunately, in my case, what I saw is an Atlanta offense that may not be as bad as people think. Yeah. Now, I'm still worried that they have virtually no wide receivers they have about 10 wide receivers, but none of them are anything close to a number one wide receiver. None.
Well, who is their best receiver?
It would be tight end Kyle Pitts. I mean, he's going to be essentially you'd have to say, if you ask people, it would be Drake London, who's a rookie from USC who didn't even play the second half of the year because he was hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Pitts guy. He does damage. So if he stays healthy, that's going to help him out. Another team four teams. You know what? This entire division has switched opinions when you really think about it. Going on to the Saints, when the season ended, we thought that they lost Peyton. We thought it was all over. And they have made a lot of great moves. Their defense should be good. Offense, I don't know, but they weren't interested in rebuilding. They've got continuity with the new coach that's been there previously. I'm cautiously optimistic on the Saints at this point, but especially since this Kamara situation, we expected a suspension, and that's probably not going to happen this year.
I don't know. I don't understand why the NFL hasn't made a decision on that.
I don't know, but when we get done with this video, I want you to call and find out.
Yeah.
Call the head office. So, what are your thoughts on these Saints? I have them actually bet to win the division at some nice prices, 440, 400, 350. More so, I just see that they could do well, and I think Tampa Bay, quite frankly, I've soured on them.
Without Sean Payton, I thought they wouldn't necessarily decide to go in win now mode, but they've stayed in that mode.
Right.
I mean, they have two guys born and bred in college at LSU on the team with Jarvis Landry, sure-handed wide receiver. Chris Olave, they drafted. They may get Michael Thomas back. They get Jameis Winston back. My only concern with them is, well, first, my concern is depth. If people get hurt on this team that drafts an average of 4.9 players per year, the league average would be close to 8. That would be a big problem. And the other thing is you got Dennis Allen, and we've talked about this before, so I don't want to rehash it too much, but a defensive-minded coach who is probably going to pull the reins on them in being in attack mode offensively, even though, especially with Kamara on the field, they should be in attack mode because they have the weapons. They still have a good offensive line. They lost one guy, but it's not as much as Dallas or Tampa has lost. This is a team, I went back and looked, wow, they opened 7.5, season wins. Now they're pretty much 8.5. If I was more of an over player, I would have said, of course, I didn't know then that they would be in such win now mode. But I could see where they could challenge for the division, especially if Tampa's off their game.
Yeah, and so moving on to Tampa, it feels like their dirty laundry is, everybody should already know what their dirty laundry is. It just seems they've lost too many weapons, and Brady seems half in, half out. This is a situation where potentially things could go south fast, and Brady could potentially say, I don't need this. Goodbye. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We know Gronk said for sure he's not coming back. And he was the security blanket for Brady. And they've lost some key parts. They lost their center, which is the second most important position. And, there's going to be an issue with that. They play that first place schedule. They know how to handle those types of situations for the most part. You had the coaching change. Is Brady going to run this team, or is the new coach going to run the team? I just see a real possibility that they just become a better than average team instead of, considering them elite. And I want to just leave it with this one thing is they weren't all that last year, in my opinion. And the previous year when they won the Super Bowl, they had plus 10 turnovers in the playoffs. They got very fortunate to get where they were. And I don't think, and when they won the Super Bowl, nobody actually counted on them winning the Super Bowl. So this is a team that is inflated because of Brady and that situation. I just think that they're a better than average team.
So when we left it last time, I was starting to be downcast on Tampa because, basically going into last year, all 22 starters returned, which was unheard of, unprecedented. But if going into this year, and Ndamukong Suh is gone from there, 2 offensive linemen were expected to be gone. Now you got 3 offensive linemen that are gone. It's a shell of itself. Fournette is reportedly in shape or out of shape. We know Godwin's not there. Gronkowski is probably the best tight end that I've ever seen in the NFL, past, present, and he's gone. There are parts that are missing, and these are not just everyday parts. These are major parts of the component that's missing. They still have Tom Brady, and he still looks ageless. And so you say, well, do I really want to go against Brady? But I did. I pulled the trigger 3 times since we last talked. 11.5 was readily available.
So did I.
And it's just a situation that they're clearly not as good, and they're going to have to hope that the opponents that they face and in the division that they face, that maybe they go 5-1 in the division, because Atlanta and Carolina are more hyped than anything else, that they're still missing parts. But even if they go 5-1 in a division, because they have the first place schedule, which
is not going to happen. I don't see them winning 5 games in the division.
Well, if they did, they would have to go 6-5 the rest of the way to get to 12. No, they'd have to go 7. They'd still have to win 7 games against a first place schedule, which would include 4 more first place teams, 3 in their division and 1 elsewhere. So five of them actually. So I solidified my, I was sort of under, and now I said, no, I have to go under. All the situations, all the metrics, all the personnel tell me that Tampa shouldn't be in the conversation for top team in the NFC.
Well, we're mostly agreeing on a lot of stuff. NFC West, that division annoys me. We're starting with the 49ers here, which in my opinion has the highest ceiling, frankly. I love the fact that for the time being, Garoppolo is there. We've talked about it. It seemed like the dumbest move possible to get rid of this guy. I know they have an investment in this quarterback, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Put the kid in and let him do whatever he does, and you've got Garoppolo to do the mop-up duty, and that's the best quarterback situation in the NFL right now. So when you look at the defense, when you look at the offensive tools, this team and the way they've been decimated by injuries, if they stay healthy, they're the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, as long as they have adequate quarterback play. They could beat Buffalo if they're healthy And I think Buffalo, I don't know. We talked about them in the last video, but I've got very high hopes on the 49ers, but we've seen 2 years in a row, injuries have really cost them what they could have had the potential of doing.
Well, this is interesting because if I had to look back on last season, I would say San Francisco was the best, should have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, they played with a guy at less than 50% in Jimmy G in the championship game and led by 10. And I think they would have beaten Cincinnati, based on the fact that they have Bosa on one side and the offensive line, on the other side. Yeah. So, it was a missed opportunity, but teams miss opportunities. The Saints missed it 3 years in a row, one time due to a referee call, one time due to a miracle catch from Minnesota. So, there's such a thin line between getting and winning to the Super Bowl. I've said this probably offline to you, so I'll say it online for everybody else. The power rating that I set for San Francisco is going to be lower than most people set because I take a snapshot of what the team is now, not what the team is in December. Where Trey Lance could be as a quarterback in December, yeah, they may be one of the top 5 teams, but I'm not setting that power rating on September 11th that high because Trey Lance isn't there yet. He's going to stumble. He's going to learn on the job. He's had one meaningful game in 2 years, college and NFL. But it's maybe a bold take by you to say that they could be one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL. But it's not exactly far-fetched when we don't have, especially in the NFC, when, we always have some reservations of what Green Bay's about. But after Green Bay, who's to say who is number 2?
Yeah, exactly. I firmly believe the 49ers are the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
Yeah. I'm neutral. I'm going into the season with an incredibly open mind and let the metrics determine where I go with them. I have no interest in going one way or the other until I see how this team develops. Jimmy Ward, by the way, a key member of their secondary, is out for the first 4 weeks, just to mention that as well.
Well, I just for people that are new to the show or whatever, we work all summer long, and all that work for the most part could be gone and useless after week 2 or 3. Both of us are willing to pivot on a dime. I mean, I don't have any loyalty to any team or any opinion going into the season that I'm confident I'm one, that I need to follow. I wait for the metrics to come in, and those are going to be my primary guidance along with situational type handicapping in addition. So anything we talk about, neither one of us are married. Is there anything that you're married to at all?
My wife.
Okay. So Arizona Cardinals. We all know that they start off well every season and then they can't win by the end of the season. And that's a Kingsbury issue because before he came to Arizona, he had the same problem with his previous team. I forget where he coached. Arizona.
Texas Tech.
Oh, Texas Tech. So that's a really bad pattern. And they're going to be missing Hopkins for the first 6 weeks. They got rid of what's his name. And they've replaced some of that, but Kyler's got to stay healthy. If he is not in that lineup or he's injured, if he's immobile, that hurts that team a lot. They really count on him. And honestly, I don't think he can stay healthy the way he plays for an entire season. Mm-hmm. He's not a leader. I mean, that's what's come out. I mean, that was new information to me that I didn't realize that he really isn't that respected. And that's a problem. I really liked Arizona last year. I was making good money with him until, he went down. So it's kind of sad. I just don't. And I was very optimistic for them to do well this season, but they lost a lot of key parts. And it just seems like they're discombobulated to me. I feel like they're going to be inconsistent. Undependable. They may, they'll win 42-7 1 week and get blown out another week somehow. How are you feeling about the Cardinals?
Well, My take on the Cardinals is pretty much the unsung hero of this team to me is the general manager. He doesn't get enough credit. I cover the draft, as people know, for 40 years. Steve Keim is a GM, and he gets his coaches the type of players that they ask for. And they've got the talent based on the draft. Their defensive coaching staff has let the team down time and time again. They have some first-round linebackers that, for whatever reason, they're talented, but they're not getting the most out of those linebackers. They had an unfortunate situation in the secondary. One of their players passed away in the summer that they had gotten, Jeff Gladney. So that area is going to be vulnerable. When you're vulnerable like that and playing, you mentioned how poorly they play late in the season. Well, guess what? This late in the season, they're going to have a couple of short weeks. So we've got a situation where they're not even going to have a fair scheduling advantage. And we're going to ask this coaching staff to make adjustments late in the season, and they haven't been able to make those adjustments. With all that being said, I'm more or less neutral on them, leaning under. I have some like free money stuff under that's not worth mentioning because I was able to pivot one place against.
Well, you
another.
mentioned it.
Yeah, I did mention it. So there it is. But my problem with, if I want to be on the fair side with Arizona, nobody expected 11 wins last year. It's just the way they got to 11 that caused people to think that they're not that good. But, like we've said, if you would have said that they would have won 11 games last year, you would have said, wow, this team is really doing well. So maybe we're not giving them quite enough credit, but in close game situations, I still worry about the defensive coaching.
Yeah, and it was frustrating for me because I lost a handful of late games because they were really strong on the metrics. They really started off well. And
that's coaching.
Yeah, and I lost a handful of games late with them where their defense was just so inept. You just knew that the other team was going to – I remember the Rams game. You just knew the Rams were going to score almost every time. So that's not a team I want to get behind. And speaking of the Rams, they're up next. And I think Stafford's elbow is an issue. I think they don't have any depth whatsoever. Still, they haven't solved that problem. They'll probably add what's his name as a receiver by forget
Beckham?
his name. Yeah,
Beckham.
I mean, he's not signed anywhere. He wants to come back.
He's rehabbing.
Yeah, so I'm not optimistic on the Rams. I think that they got a lot of lucky breaks. They were a good team. They're going to be a good team this year, but they're not elite. It's not going to surprise me to see them some way, somehow, just at 10 wins, 9 wins. I don't think they're any lock for the division. And it just feels like they're fragile. They're a fragile team. What do you think?
If they had started with the roster they started with in 2021, if they had ended that roster same way 2021, they would have won 9 games last year. That's it. But they added Von Miller. They added Sony Michel when they needed him. They added Odell Beckham. Later in the year, they added Eric Whittle. All 4 of them are gone. The caution I would have, because I could see this team going 8-9, but the caution I have is that as long as they're in some sort of race, we'll probably see a player added in October, a player added. That's just the way they function.
Right.
Draft choices are bargaining chips to them. They don't build that way. They're not a player in the draft that's going to help them. Coming from this draft, they had a guy penciled in as offensive guard, but he's out for the year. So they get no help from this draft. And basically, with Stafford a little bit more fragile, and with Darnold not having Von Miller next to him, you could double team him again. And so maybe you get something out of that. This is a very fragile team, in my opinion, that if they don't add players, they may not make the playoffs.
And let's not forget the key retirement,
Whitworth.
Yeah.
Good point.
When teams lose people of that talent and that influence, and that guy seems like a great guy, Locker rooms can change, dynamics can change, and you just have to pay attention to these little things. And speaking of little things, we've got a little thing called the Seattle Seahawks, which I don't know what's going on. You know, you got a 70-year-old coach sticking around for a rebuild. That I don't know what they have there. I mean, it just seems like it's built with pixie sticks or something. You know what? I have nothing. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I had nothing to say about the Seahawks.
Okay, well then you're what do they do in Congress? You're ceding your time to me?
Yes, I'm ceding my time to you.
Okay, we got that. I want to make one more point about the Rams, just a quick one, and that's the one positive for them is their pickup of Allen Robinson cannot be.
That's awesome! Awesome.
I mean, he could be a 1,200-yard receiver with the right quarterback. You know who threw to him the last few years?
I know nobody.
So this is a real positive for them. Okay, so we've saved the best for last because here's my chance to be controversial. I like Seattle, and I've determined that. And so now okay, what's Ron talking about? Everybody's going to say, what? Where did Ron go on this one? But think about what we just talked about. Arizona, we're questioning them. The Rams, we're questioning them. San Francisco, we have some concerns, at least early in the year, as Lance develops. Maybe we think they're going to be somewhere different later in the year. Seattle is so used to playing and beating these teams in the regular season. They face them twice a year, obviously. Pete Carroll knows them. He's a strong teacher. Not only wouldn't it shock me if Seattle went 3-3 in the division, I expect them to go 3-3 in the division. I haven't really taken a deep dive at the schedule placement, but these teams that they're facing, maybe they're better than Seattle because Seattle's in sort of rebuilding mood, and maybe I'm off my rocker because Drew Lock or Geno Smith is going to pilot this team. But in addition to these 6 games, they're going to play a bunch of 4th place teams. If Seattle goes 6-11 this year, first of all, that would be an enormously great result for me, because I have them alt wins 5, I have them 5.5. I have so many, things going on with them. But everybody would say, "See, I told you, Seattle is just 6-11. They're not very good." If 6-11 is such a low bar for this team, I think they can achieve it.
Well, you actually reminded me that my feeling when the season ended was exactly what you said. They're going to play a last place schedule. And this is the same situation with Belichick last year. I'm like wondering, well, why are you sticking around? I think you and I have talked about it, and you think that, if it is a rebuild, he's the type of guy that would like to do that even at age 70. But, my look is a little different that, he wouldn't stick around if he didn't think that he could, at least flirt with, some success. And, if it was a complete and utter rebuild, I think he would have left. So that supports, your contention that, hey, last place schedule, there's meaningful parts spread throughout. Quarterback's useless, but maybe they get lucky.
Well, think about this. They have 9 home games, and that's not an easy place to play. They have 7 road games.
Well, that's not entirely true. I was pointing out all last season that 12th man doesn't exist anymore. They're
okay.
Home runs.
Is that versus the spread or straight up?
Straight up, they're not doing well.
Okay.
So go back and look at these Seattle numbers over the last handful of years, and you'll be surprised.
Okay, I will look at that, but I like that. It's not the sole factor why I like them, but it's not even really a factor. But having 9 home games and the neutral game, which is kind of a road game with Tampa and Munich, Germany, I think that one is in. So
I went there on a Sunday and everything was closed. I was pissed. Everything in Europe closes on Sundays. It's the strangest thing. But it was only in Munich one day, and everything was closed. It was frustrating.
See, even everybody has a rest day sometime. Not Chris, but everybody else has a rest day. So okay, I'm going to throw it back to you then. Who would be your surprise team? Who comes out of the NFC? If it's not Green Bay and somehow they seem to not come out, who comes out? Is it
Well,
San Francisco for you?
well, I think the average person would be more surprised with San Francisco coming out, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
They're looking
people are
Rams or
just,
Philly,
yeah,
Green
yeah,
Bay, Vikings. There's not a lot of talk about San Francisco.
true.
So that would be my surprise team. And aside from them, uh, I
Yeah,
don't, there's no real true surprise teams. I
yeah,
think we're going to always find 4 or 5 new playoff teams every year.
right.
And people are more optimistic overall about their teams this year than in an average year. It seems it just there's only a couple of teams that people sit there and say are going to suck, and there's a lot of optimism for kind of the rest of the league, except Washington, who nobody talks about.
Yeah. So let me leave it at this. I know what I'm going to be doing, the next week. I need to finish up my week by week previews, and then I'll have my whole 32-page preview all done. What do you do with the NFL between now and kickoff on Thursday?
Right now, I'm focusing on. I just did my 2021 autopsy for my bets, and while people are worried about the teams, I'm kind of going through week by week and revisiting the flow of last year, see if there's any patterns, what was different. And I focus on my bets because I work off of a metric model system, and I want to see what's changing or what's not changing. And I think that that's important. And I wait until right before the season just so it's fresher. Because if I did it right after last season, I'll forget these flows and I'll forget, little things that I did week to week. I'm changing my betting style. And I'm kind of looking into kind of honing that betting style. I'm doing things a little bit differently last year, and that I want to continue into this year. So that's where I'm kind of focused on, because I've done enough work on each of these teams, and I realize that the work doesn't really mean that much. We're going to see overreaction week 1, and a little overreaction after week 2, probably also. And, by week 4, it doesn't matter what I thought going into the season. It's what are the metrics showing that these teams are actually going to do, and applying it to the teams that they've been playing and such. So that, that's my perspective. That's what I'm working on right now.
So one other thing to piggyback on that, one thing I'm excited about for this year is that during the season, we may talk online or offline after week 2, week 3, week 4, and whatever, and say, hey, wait a second, we have adjusted season win totals now.
Exactly.
Where's the overreaction and how can we take advantage of it? So we've got this is all new to me to think about. I can make some adjustments during the season and see if I can find an edge. And if we brainstorm that, I think that might be something different for 2022.
That's actually my number one in-season goal, is for us to work together either Monday or Tuesday and go through what's going on with props, what's going on with season wins, what's going on with futures, because I think it's important to kind of keep up on that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing that I really appreciate the most, and I'm going to do a short video on it, is habits and routine. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most, because this has been the most miserable summer I've ever had in my life. I just overworked, no schedule, no habits. Every day is just another S storm. So, but I know from past history with college football and NFL going on, you need to be in a routine. I will be in a routine. And when crap happens, it's peripheral. It doesn't matter. These are my priorities.
Yeah, and you know, the summer series really kicked that in, and all the great guests that primarily you were able to obtain for us. Everything was about habits and routine.
Yeah.
And that's always the number one takeaway, because luckily there's been a lot of work done in the off season. So at the on season, you're starting at a point different than a lot of people are starting, where they just start in week one and they think they're ready to go, and they're not. Even if the metrics change and so on, you have to understand schedule flow and everything else. And I'd rather not do it on the fly. And it just kicks home, a video that you do or we do or whatever on 15 minutes worth of habits will go a long way.
Geez, I just lost my train of thought. The boy, what was I going to say? Dang it!
Something about summer series or habits. Let me throw keywords.
Yeah. I was basically going to just close out. Actually, I want to remind people, if you haven't seen the summer series, honestly, I don't care how good you think you are at betting. There's something you're going to learn from each of those videos. We went above and beyond to make sure we pried and made sure we had original content, things that are not asked elsewhere. So I can't recommend that strongly enough. We're going to be back on Monday with something that I have not seen anybody ever do that I think is going to be very interesting. I hate to tease you guys, but we just don't want anybody copying it before we actually put it out. So we're looking forward to that. It shouldn't be that long of a video, much shorter, but so look for that. And then Ted's going to be joining us, and we're going to be doing a preview video before the Friday, because we're planning on being on Fridays with a unique concept with somebody that's there right on the front lines doing media and having to prepare. And we're going to be comparing notes and situations. And I think that's going to be some good content from your friend, Ron, Ted, Ron.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. Thanks to everybody for watching us through the NFC and AFC playoffs. We're, as we tape this, 6 days away from NFL kickoff, and the first full week of college football. No college football talk, but the first full week is tomorrow. So have a great Labor Day weekend.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you. Great conversation, Ron, and I look forward to the next one. Don't forget to subscribe.